This is Sebastian Tordaz. Welcome to The Insiders, which we're producing in conjunction with Media Circus. And we're here today with Dan Mirvish and Sasha Alexander. Thank you both for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sebastian, for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they have a film here. We're at the Slamdance Film Festival in Park City. And you have a film here called Bernard and Huey.
Yes.
And I want to hear all about how that came together. But I'm actually going to start with something else because we have one thing that all three of us have in common, which is we all went to USC Cinema.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Go.
so fight on.
Fight
I know we're
on.
going to make it about USC a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was in grad school, we never learned the secret science.
Exactly. But I'm going to actually throw it to you, Sasha, first. But I did want to say for everyone here that we actually also did an interview last year with Dan, which is fantastic. It's like almost an hour long because Dan's also the co-founder of the Slamdance Film Festival, and it's a great. To do the two interviews together is fantastic.
Yeah.
But Sasha, I was really delighted to find out because I didn't know actually you were coming. So I'm super happy that you're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really happy. And so I'd like to know, just tell us a little bit about your origin story, like where you're from, and you went to USC. Was it to act or was it to write and direct? And how did the transition happen?
Well, I grew up in LA, but my family is, European, so I was back and forth a lot. And, I was a dancer. I was an ice skater. I fell into some acting. And then when I graduated high school, I thought, I'm not going to be an actor. That's just a terrible profession.
That's crazy talk.
That's crazy talk. You have to be so, I was rejected every day. Like, I just didn't think that I had the type of personality that would be happy doing that. And so, but I knew that I loved film, and I knew that I loved and I wanted to understand how to make movies. And so I went to USC and I studied production, directing, undergrad production, and double majored in critical studies.
Wait, I was a double major.
You were?
There's less than 10 of us that have ever done both.
You know what? I know that because I did not know. I did not plan on being a double major, but I loved a lot of the classes that were offered in there. So I would just take them for fun. And then all of a sudden we got to the end. They said, if you just took one more class, you'd be a double major.
That's what I did. Yeah, it's great. I actually walked, though, because I had a choice. You could walk as production or critical studies. And I actually walked as critical studies, which everyone was like, why are you doing that? But I love that because I did it just to be different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I mean, it was an amazing experience. We have many friends in common that have gone on to such great things. And, and I love it. That's why I love being here at the festivals as well, because it reminds me of that feeling of going to this space that you study and you're all in it together and
Did
you're doing
you make
what
any
you love.
films, like shorts and things, or? I
did. I directed a couple there. Then I produced my 480. I produced the 480.
I was a 480 producer too.
You were?
But I did a graduate 480. I was the last year of grad. I was an undergrad, but I was the last year of graduate 480 as a producer.
Oh,
For those
really?
who don't know,
Dan, why are you here?
480
is the 20-minute thesis film at USC.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like the big thing that everyone wants to do.
Your final movie that you make. Yeah.
But of course, you don't really want to be the director of one because they've wasted all their parents' money on those things.
Yeah.
But it's a great reel for the DP, and it's a great experience for the producers.
Oh,
it's a great experience. I edited a 480. That was terrific.
Great.
But I'm, in retrospect, very glad I didn't direct one. Because I went straight to a feature after that.
Yeah. So, so I did that, and I had no intention of being an actor, although I had friends that were in film school that didn't know any actors, and so they would often ask me to be in their projects, but really out of necessity, out of needing a body to just do it. And so I did that. And then when I got out of school, I went to go work at Sony Pictures for producer.
Who?
And first I worked with Barry Josephson, Lucas Foster. Yeah.
Okay. I know. Okay, go on. I mean, I know people work for him.
I interned at Burlston Gray and some of these places when I was
you were in
school.
development for a while.
I was in development, and I really got a taste of that. And then there was a moment of, do you move up and can pursue that? Or not? And there was a casting woman. She walked into the office. We were doing this movie, and she said, you should audition for this part. And I said,
Did she know you had acted?
No. And she's a huge casting director. And I said, no, I'm not acting. I don't do that. And she goes, I don't know. I know an actor when I see one, and I think you should try. And all of a sudden it was like, and I blame her to this day, that it was her that sort of set this light bulb off. And I think what happened for me was everything is hard in this business. Everything takes every bit of your blood and sweat and tears, and you got to do the thing you love. And I felt like I would regret not pursuing acting, at least for a while, to see. And then I quit and I gotten an acting class, and 6 months, really like 6, 7 months later, we made a film that came to Slamdance.
Yes.
Oh, what was it? Wait, this is a
Eric,
great story.
with another SC alum, Eric Kripke. We
Oh,
made a film
yeah.
called Battle of the Sexes.
Yeah.
And it was an idea that he sort of planted, and then all of a sudden we were making this movie. He came here. We both got signed with a great agency, and then he got a 3-picture deal with DreamWorks, and we were off to the races. And less than a year later, I started my first series called Wasteland with Kevin Williamson for ABC, and that's what I was doing.
That was Imagine Television, right? Wasteland?
It was not. It
No.
was actually the Weinsteins' first TV show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was Bob and Harvey's first series.
Okay.
They're going places.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dan, I want to hear a little bit about your origin story too, like where you're from and like your time in the scene, like when you just got out, what that was
Well,
like.
most people, I grew up in Omaha, and but my parents were from South Africa, so
Really?
They were?
I didn't know
Yes.
that.
No way.
That's fantastic.
Yes, wait.
I did not know that. You never brought that up. I'm
Never
surprised.
came up in rehearsal.
He talks about his origins often. I feel like
Yeah.
in your.
But yeah,
like
so I
conversation.
was,
Can you be like a dual citizen or anything?
No, I mean I suppose if they had wanted to,
Yeah.
but and then they had lived in Israel for a few years,
Uh-huh.
and then somehow got stuck in Omaha.
Interesting.
My mom is still a little dubious of why they got stuck in Omaha. They were aiming for Chicago, and there was some sort of mix-up. And
Uh-huh.
so,
Kind of like how Hollywood started.
yeah,
Supposed to
she
be in
never quite
Flagstaff,
forgave
and
my
ended
dad
up in
for
LA.
that. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so I grew up in Omaha, went to college in St. Louis, did some film, took a Super A class. I went to Washington University in St. Louis. It didn't have a film program. They had one Super A class, and I took it, and I really liked it. And then I did some. So I thought, I should take some summer classes at a real film school. So I went to UCLA for a summer, and took some cinematography classes there. And actually, Alexander Payne was just starting grad school
Mhm.
at UCLA, so we were in the same cinematography classes. And it was great because UCLA smells so much better than USC, by the way. It smells like eucalyptus and opportunity, and as opposed to menthols and despair. But and I really loved
okay.
it. But then I got in, and I kept doing film stuff in college. I was very active with the group that programmed films, that showed movies.
DKA.
No,
Who?
no, this was in St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's called Film Board. We projected 60 millimeter films, but because I knew how to use 60 millimeter camera, we shot. I directed my first real productions were Coming Soon and No Smoking trailers, like no smoking in the theater, And but anyway, I got a little sidetracked in journalism and politics. After college. I went to Washington. I did some journalism, and then was a speechwriter to a senator, Tom Harkin from Iowa. Did that for about a year and a half, and then thought, well, if you stay in D.C. long enough, they just give you a law degree by osmosis, like by the time you hit 30. And I was like, oh, the same thing. Like, do I really want to do that, or if I'm ever going to take the leap and try film, now's the time. So I applied to film school. Couldn't get into UCLA. Couldn't get into any film school except USC. That was my super safety school.
That's good.
And and so I traveled through Africa for 5 months while I was waiting to get my applications. Anyway, got into SC, and I was there around the same time as you guys were there.
Yeah, I was 93. When were you on?
I was.
Can we not talk dates?
All right,
like,
we won't
really?
do that.
Yeah,
Is that necessary? You have
Well,
one
for him,
actor here.
yeah,
that
no,
don't
I know.
do
I know.
it.
Actors don't like that.
Yeah, no,
so I
this
don't like to do
was-
that.
I'm totally
This was
joking.
in 2012. We were,
exactly.
when we were all there.
Exactly.
And,
2012.
Right.
You're 14.
Yeah, and and then I was there for a year, and then you know how like everyone would get these summer internships doing script coverage,
Yeah.
and like
We all
not get paid and sit in an air conditioned office, and I thought, and I had one of those lined up, and then I saw, you remember they used to have the bulletin boards, before computers, and that said, job boards and stuff, and I saw one that said interns needed for a week of feature filmmaking in LA, and I thought, oh, this sounds more exciting than reading coverage. And it said terrorist filmmaking. And I thought, I've heard of guerrilla filmmaking. I've never heard of terrorist filmmaking. I wonder what that is.
Okay.
So I called the number, and this guy with this thick Hungarian accent answered. I said, what is this terrorist filmmaking? He said, oh, yes, my dictionary was wrong. I meant to write guerrilla filmmaking. Ha, 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 ha. and he was a strange Hungarian director. But he was working on this kickboxing movie that was going to be shooting in the Philippines, but they were doing all their exteriors in LA because it was set in LA. So they were doing 1 week in LA. But it was written by Paul Wolanski. You guys remember Paul? He was a screenwriting professor at SC.
Yes,
and
I do remember him.
Now he's the head of screenwriting at Chapman. But anyway, he had written the script, so he kind of, and I had taken a class with him, so he kind of vouched for me. Anyway, long story short, I wound up in the Philippines for most of the summer working on the kickboxing movie.
Oh, wow.
As the second assistant director, dialogue coach. I wrote extra little scenes.
You kickboxed?
I got shot in the chest twice.
Oh my God.
And on
Would
screen.
like to shoot me in the chest.
Yeah. Yeah, because they needed like any white guy they could get.
Exactly.
So I say, wait a minute. And I die in 2 different scenes. And then the producer who's from Hong Kong, he said, Dan, you seem to be the only one who knows what's going on around here. Do you want to come back to LA? Yes, I do. And always make sure you have a return ticket, situation like that. And we'll make you the post supervisor. And I said, great. What's a post supervisor? So my job was to then find an edit suite for the production. So I found this porn company in Hollywood.
This
that
is
had
making a really weird turn.
Yeah, but they had an extra
Well, we're
empty
talking Harvey
suite.
Weinstein.
But I remember they were really nice, and I remember their name. It was Miracle Films, and their motto was, "If it's a good film, it's a miracle."
It's true.
But anyway, then I became an assistant editor,
kind of
and then the Hong Kong producer and the Hungarian director got in a really uncomfortable kickboxing match themselves in the edit room, and that was the last day of editing. That's how you knew it was the last day of editing, and they started fighting. And but anyway, the point was, I got back to USC, and over the course of the summer, I had seen exactly how to make a movie. Like, it was a crazy movie.
Because you didn't learn that at USC, of course.
Of course not. No. And but I'd seen a movie literally from script to kickboxing finished in the edit room. And so then I thought, well, instead of doing a short film, why not just go straight to doing a feature? And so then I wrote a feature in my screenwriting class and made Omaha the movie.
Yeah.
I made it the next year.
Cool.
And it was the first time anyone had done a full-length feature as their thesis film. And technically, I had to become a crit studies department because that was the one loophole was, because normally, you remember at SC, like if you did a feature, or if you did a thesis, like at 480, the school would own the negative, they would own the film. So the only way to get around that was to, technically I had to change from an MFA to an MA in crit studies, because crit studies had a thing that said you could do a film as a thesis, and it didn't say how long it was.
Wow.
And you could own it yourself.
Really?
So that was, but the Dean Daly said, but no, you can't use any equipment on campus, not even a pencil sharpener. But I was shooting in Nebraska anyway. Robert Altman's grandson became my producing partner, Dana Altman, because he happened to live in Omaha. Panavision gave us free cameras, 35 millimeter cameras. Paramount gave us an edit suite. So we cut on the Paramount.
But what's interesting is I like how his mind works, because this movie, Bernard and Huey, the way he finds like this little niche that like no one else sees. I mean, like you could have a boulder and there's this one little thing no one sees, even up close, but he finds it.
Yes, Dan does. Yeah.
And that's how this movie happened. It's also the Oscar winner, the Oscar movie happened. But so let's flash forward to Bernard and Huey, and then we'll come back.
About USC.
You two had not known each other, or did you know each other?
We'd
before?
met.
We had, we think. Well,
We think, yeah, we're not
you
sure.
met. We definitely met when I was first starting to cast Between Us.
Okay.
We met in Culver City at Akasha's for coffee.
Okay.
And then, but we didn't. And it was right before you were doing Rizzoli and Isles.
Oh, okay.
And then we didn't make the movie then. We made the movie like 2 years later. And by then you were already in the series. Otherwise, you would have been cast.
I would have been cast.
Because I enjoyed meeting you. And but then we met again for Bernard and Huey, and then we sort of made these USC connections. And we're like, oh.
And I knew Dan's name. I mean, I think from Slamdance, from also mutual
I guess you'd
friends.
been
We had
here.
people in common.
Including the guy who wound up being our cinematographer.
Including, Todd
Somonavia,
who was in our class and who was,
roommates with Ryan Johnson.
Roommates
Steve
with
Yedlin.
Ryan, so we were all, that was all my whole class. Was Ryan,
and those
Steve,
were like those were the undergrads that I knew. I didn't know that many undergrads, but those guys.
Yeah.
Ryan, his first credit on IMDb is as a PA on Omaha.
On Omaha.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's so funny.
and Steve's first credit too.
I mean,
I sat when I was working on Lucas Foster's desk as an assistant. I was trying to produce Brick for Ryan.
Oh my gosh,
Are you
really?
kidding me?
Oh, I had it for years. Ryan and I were trying to get money to make that movie. We had it for a while, yeah. So I mean, it's
And I was
it's
one of the
all
first
such
people
a
who read it. He sent it to me like when he first wrote
That's so
it.
funny. And while we were in school, I wrote for our screenwriting project. I adapted a short story of Jules Pfeiffer's back to Bernard and Huey, and he was just one of my most favorite writers. So when Bernard and Huey came across my desk, I thought, what do you mean that Jules Pfeiffer has a script? And so we were both so excited about him and being able to bring something of his to the screen, and so it was. It
Tell
all
us
kind of
more.
really
Who's
made
Jules?
sense.
Well, who is Jules Pfeiffer? Why were you so interested in? Just in case people don't know, who is he?
Well, he's famous for a lot of different things, but probably mostly as a cartoonist, an illustrator. He was a cartoonist for the Village Voice for 44 years. He won a Pulitzer Prize for that.
And he trained under.
Trained under Will Eisner in the 40s.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, pretty impressive. But he was also a playwright. He's won 2 Obies. He's an Oscar-winning animator. And as a screenwriter, he wrote Carnal Knowledge, the Mike Nichols film with Jack Nicholson, Art Garfunkel, and Candice Bergen. He wrote Popeye, the Robert Altman film with Robin Williams, which was an epic failure.
Oh yeah, the town still exists. Still,
Yeah.
apparently. Still the same
Yes,
set. The Popeye
yes,
set.
the Popeye set is still there in Malta.
exists.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
tourist attraction in Malta.
Oh, we should make a movie about that.
You kind of could. And my producing partner, Dana Altman, was like 14 years old on the set of Popeye. So he actually met Pfeiffer when he was like a teenager.
Oh wow.
So Pfeiffer's just an amazing character. Now he's like a best-selling graphic novelist at age 88.
And he's so unique. His point of view, the way he writes, he's funny, he's reverent,
political.
wild, political. I mean, he has such a strong point of view on so many things.
Is
That's
that what
always
attracted
appealed
you
to
to
me.
this script, or what was it? What made you want to do this movie?
Well, first of all, the characters are lovely. He writes. He has such a strong, very specific voice, and this film was about people, which so much now it's hard to find those that just kind of allow these characters that they're all flawed. It is about, well, you can tell them, but two men who were friends and who then see each other 20 years later. It's about the women who populate their lives, and these men are behaving badly, and it's how these women sort of help them. Mm. I think in their own different ways come to be better people, or happier people, or more evolved people. So I just, I'm always attracted to that first and foremost, and the characters. And it was wonderful to speak with Dan about it because, Dan is an adult and he has
marginally.
He is not. I mean, in the way of how he allows the characters to breathe and be all things. There wasn't any restrictions on, don't get too angry, or don't be too this, or don't be too that. I mean, he gives you the space to create what I think are more than 3-dimensional characters, and we had fun doing it. It was funny and wonderful. Cast wonderful actors in all the roles, and just I think even elevated the material to something even more, and really made it very current. Because one of the things that we talked about when I first saw him was I just felt like, because it was written in the 80s, that, and the way the guys talk, it's a little misogynistic in terms of, how I liked it, but I thought, how are you going to deal with that? How are these women not going to be just... So
did you keep the script? Because this is a script that was written a long, long time ago.
Yeah, right? It was written in 1986. It's based on characters that go back to 1957 in his Village Voice cartoons, and then in the 80s he was a cartoonist also for Playboy magazine. He was friends with Hefner for years, and from 82 to 85 there was a recurring comic in the back of Playboy where everyone's reading the comics that was called Bernard and Huey, and Pfeiffer said it was a satire of the middle-aged guys that read Playboy. But he took these younger characters from the 50s and turned them into these 2 middle-aged guys who were just desperately trying to still get laid, but dealing with, early 80s, neuroses and divorce and, the onset of AIDS. And, it was it was a real commentary on middle age at that time. Anyway, based on that, Showtime commissioned him to write the screenplay, based on these characters. So he did.
This is in the 80s.
Yeah, this is in 1986. But the week he turned in the draft of the script, they changed ownership and changed their whole business model to, I don't know, boxing and comedy or whatever they were doing at the time. And so they never paid him for it. And he had a producing partner at the time, and they tried to pitch it as a Hollywood movie. But they sent it out, and they were kind of pitching it a little bit as a Carnal Knowledge sequel or reboot or something.
It feels that way.
They're very similar characters to the two characters in Carnal Knowledge. Although Pfeiffer always had this ongoing discussion with Mike Nichols that they were really different characters. But yeah, at one point they told me that they sent the script to Kathleen Kennedy when she was the Spielberg's head producer. And she wrote back, "This is the most misogynistic script I've ever read."
Okay, so I wasn't off base.
No, not off base at all. So,
I wasn't off base.
But where's her career now?
Yeah, where?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so much for Pfeiffer writing the next Star Wars movie. But
that said, it's really a testament. And I said this to Dan when I first saw the movie. I called him. I said, I can't believe that you were able to, through so many things, have the sensitivity to cast people who, all the female characters are played by actresses who have a really strong point of view, who represent many colors of the rainbow in terms of emotionality. They're what?
Mostly white.
Okay, well, you know what I mean.
Yes,
I don't mean color, but I mean, you know.
She did the political version.
But I mean colors of the emotional rainbow.
Yes, the emotional.
And I feel like I was just really impressed that he achieved that. I gotta say, because I do think that there was certain things that were ingrained in it, but the way he did it with humor, and always with connection. It is about people connecting. A great sense of humor. So humor, I think, can overcome a lot.
So is it the same script from the 80s, or did you change it, or what?
Well, when I first read it, and you watch the old podcast to see the story of how we found the script.
And video. It's fantastic. It's a great story. Yeah.
It took a year and a half just to find it. But I said to Jules, look, it's on an indie low-budget level. It's hard enough to make one period movie, much less two, because there's flashbacks to 1957 in the original script, or 1960. So I said, why don't we move everything up 30 years? And so now it takes place, the contemporary scenes take place now, and then we have some flashbacks to 1988.
Okay.
And he was fine with that. But what we did, so Jules and I kind of worked on the script a little bit, but really we didn't change very much at all. The dialogue is almost essentially the same. There's a few cultural references and things like that. The interesting thing is the plot didn't really change either, which in the original, Huey's daughter is an aspiring cartoonist. She wants to be in the Village Voice, and Bernard's character works at the Village Voice. And the only thing we changed is now she wants to be an aspiring graphic novelist, and Bernard works at a publishing company. The interesting thing, I think, is if we had made it 15 years ago, or someone else had made it 15 years ago, it wouldn't have worked. She would have had to have been a web designer or something like that. Like it took about 30 years for sort of the print and cartooning to kind of evolve, to get back to, graphic novels and printing, and there's a whole subplot with Huey's character having a brother at a printing plant. Like, none of that would have worked 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but it does now. So in a weird way, there was a lot less to change in the script than I think any of us anticipated until I really got in there with Jules. We're like, oh yeah, we really don't need to change this. This is great. So, and then we shot it in kind of an homage to the 70s film style. And the flashbacks are shot on film, Super 16 film. And even the contemporary scenes are shot on these big old lenses, So
it looks really cool.
Yeah, and Todd did a great job. With it. So,
although we didn't think we had it in the can, because I kept saying to Dan, Todd, do we get it? Do we get the scene? Because he did a lot of just long one takes, and I was used to just having it covered, and I just kept going, do we get it? But we certainly did.
We did, so. Yeah. No, and that's a testament to the actors. I mean, we had done 3-4 days rehearsal, and something Altman taught me was, 90% of directing is casting, and we took our time with casting too. It wasn't, people thrown at us, and I was like, no, we got to get the right people. And we did, and because these actors were so wonderful, like you could shoot a long 4-minute take, and do it in 2 takes and be done. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like doing a play. It was really satisfying in that way, like really satisfying. And David and Jim are both just like comedy greats. They're so amazing and so in it, and such improv, so you could just really play and. But thank you for allowing us to do that. I do feel a lot of times you have directors that try to sort of really control how that is, and particularly when you're under a time constraint. but you didn't. You always gave it that space, and I think that you feel that in the movie because it's not.
Actually, as an actress, that's one of the questions because I haven't done enough interviews with actors or actresses, as I mentioned. What do you like in a director? How do you like people working with you when you're on set? I'm actually really interested to know this.
Well, it's interesting. At first at USC, I had TA'd for a class that Laurie Burton taught on how to, and now I go back and I've subbed and taught this class, and would love to go and teach some more, which is working with directors on how to work with actors.
Yeah.
So I learned.
I should have taken that class.
I learned a bit there, and then I learned more through a wonderful teacher named Tom Todoroff, who has been a mentor to me, but who does often go and help really big directors on just how to navigate, even working with children or working, through actors that have a certain idea, but how do you get them there without offending them? And how, he uses words and tone and just the way he goes about it, I think has been really helpful for me. Doing hundreds and hundreds of hours of television, I've worked with many directors and also in movies, but I feel like movies are different because you have more time to prepare. And so it's a different experience. You really can see the nature of somebody when they do a series because they're under a lot of pressure and things are changing, and you have to see how flexible they are, and that's where you really see their skill set. I personally like people who communicate well. I'm not one of those actors that needs like babysitting or coddling around my ego. A lot are. And that's not to say anything about them. It's a sensitive process that we go through. And I certainly don't want anybody coming at me with what they want. But I do feel that it's a dialogue. And I think as long as an actors, we're clear on what the director wants, then it's easier for us to do our job. Mm-hmm. And so whether that means it's an actor who maybe doesn't want to be told in front of a whole crew, you go and take them aside, or you go to their trailer beforehand and you have rehearsal. What a concept, which so many people don't like, and I love so much. Yeah, people don't like read-throughs on TV shows. I'm like, well, how do you not like it? We're going into the next episode. We get to read it all together. We get to see everybody do it. You get to wrap your head around what the new story is, and make your plans and your preparation. I like people to communicate. Now, I have worked with directors who just are in their head and they communicate, I'd like to say sort of subliminally, but that's okay too, because as long as they communicate to me what I need to be feeling and whatever, then what I need to be getting from them, and they're happy, then I'm happy. But most actors are looking for some direction. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times directors get caught up in all the millions of things they have to do and they don't say anything. And I think that's frustrating. And that's when it leads to a certain
because directing is like a lot of questions being thrown at you constantly, right?
Well, you know what? That's the other thing too, is I often tell, and I've told a lot of, I've actually said this to some directors before that were really great at certain things. Maybe they did great action or whatever, but they frustrated, an actor I was working with. And I would say to them, you know what, just say what you need, and you don't need 100 other words around it. Just come in and, let's make it more important. Let's make the scene more important. Or let's, I'm not feeling the connection. Maybe we can rework where you're standing. Does this feel comfortable for you? I mean, there's ways to speak to actors, and I think it makes a really big difference. But for me, it's just personality and connection. As long as you're giving them, what they want, everybody communicates differently. It's just, I think, having that
And have you ever wanted, especially since you went to film school and you did work in development, have you ever wanted to write or direct as well?
Well, I do write. I'm
No.
producing a lot of stuff now. I directed the show I was on, Rizzoli and Isles, which was the first thing that I directed since school. I had directed a little a short film. I produced a couple features right outside of school. I did another one a few years ago. But truthfully, my acting schedule was a little heavy, and I have a family, and so I just was like, but I've been creating content, and I co-write with people, but now is this moment where I'm in a kind of a transition, and that's why this movie was so nice. I'd finished 7 years on a series, and really needed a break, and didn't want to work unless I loved something. And then I read the script and just wanted to be a part of it. And it was exactly the experience that I needed, which was simple, straightforward about the work, and none of the other. It was independent filmmaking at its just pitch perfect. Right for me. And I think for me, it's just about, I think right now we're at such an interesting time in terms of content, what's happening for women, thank goodness. And so I'm evaluating, I'm producing things that I want to see made.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing. And I'm acting as I feel fit. I'm a little bit exploring all things.
And you go and guest lecture sometimes at USC, because I might ask you over one day.
Anytime. I love
Okay.
it so much, and the students are so amazing.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I really do. It warms my soul to do it. Nothing makes me happier. And I'm so proud of watching all of our friends, get to come out and see people's careers blossom. And you were there in your first class with them when they were trying to write a paper on, I don't know, some character description and something so simple, and then you starting to see all of it really expand. It's beautiful. It's great.
It is great.
Yeah, it is a shame that there are some people whose careers just didn't take off.
They really didn't take off at all.
Ryan Johnson.
I know, Ryan's didn't. And we never
so
saw,
sad.
he was
got
a
some
rough
job
guy
at
to
Disney
work with.
and
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
working there apparently.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just amazing how time goes.
Yeah.
That's,
let's not go back too far then.
Yeah.
Remember, we're not doing dates.
Right.
All right. Well, when do you think Bernard and Huey is going to come out so people can see it?
Well, funny you should say that. I think as soon as this interview is over, we're going to tell the distributor we're going to take the deal.
Awesome.
Yes.
And
Really cool.
So then it means it should come out May, I think, is when they want it.
Sometime
Release it.
summer 2018, possibly
Yes.
fall.
Yes.
Congrats.
No,
Yeah, both of you.
congrats to you.
Congrats.
Yeah. With a theatrical release, which these days is not so easy to come by. We're still playing several festivals. We've already been to 19 festivals in 5 continents. The Iran Daily News today just announced that we had just won the best feature from the American continent at the Jaipur International Film Festival, which was our Asian premiere. So we're excited about that because they scooped IndieWire on that story. So that's nice. And our UK premiere is at the Manchester Film Festival
Oh, yeah.
in a month and a half, and that's
in a month
exciting.
and a half.
And I can hint that we might play at the Omaha Film Festival in March, but they haven't announced.
All goes
it.
back to Omaha.
It goes back to Omaha.
I don't want to. But there's a few other festivals: Oxford, Mississippi, Cinequest in San Jose,
Wow.
Fargo. That's been announced.
Fun.
Actually, right
People
before
really like the movie.
Yeah.
They really
And
do. Yeah,
that's such a
all
that's
people.
such a success. Yeah, they really
not
do.
just some people, but
All-
everybody.
That's right.
Everybody likes music.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great afternoon because it's beautiful right now.
Yes,
and
thank you.
can't
It's
wait for this to come
cold.
out. It is really cold, but
It's beautiful, yeah.
Last year was a blizzard, but this is beautiful.
There you go.
So,
Go.
Thank you very much.
Sebastian.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so
watching.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right on.
All right.
That's it.
Awesome.
Bye.